Hi, I'm Randy from WeddingCoasterKit.com, and coming up I'm going to show you in a how-to video how to make your own personalized wedding favors. These are two that I actually made for my wedding. One was the wedding invitation that we transferred onto the coaster, and the other one was a photograph from the wedding that we used it to create a nice thank you for after the wedding to give out to our friends and family. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do coming up next. Hi, this is Randy and I'm from WeddingCoasterKit.com, and I'm going to show you how to make your own wedding coasters. The neat thing about the wedding coasters is that you can transfer your photographs onto tumbled marble tiles. They can be either limestone, they can be slate, or they can be marble like this one is polished marble. You can get these at Home Depot, at Lowe's, or maybe even your own local tile supplier store. The idea is you can actually put a picture on top of the tile. And how are you going to do that? Well, we're going to provide you with the secret paper, which is called transfer paper, and you print out your image onto the surface of the paper and you do a transfer onto the surface of the tiles. And what you use is some medium that actually pulls the image off the paper onto the tile. So we basically supply you with everything you need to do your own photo transfers at home and make your own wedding coaster favors. So what I have here is the image printed out on the transfer paper, and how I've done that is I've actually taken my photograph, incorporated it into Photoshop, and did some nice elements to it, incorporating the date of the wedding and the theme of the wedding, and basically just printed it out two up on the 8.5 by 11 photo imaging paper that we're going to use for the transfer. The idea is to take a little bit of the medium and you'll paint it over the surface, let it dry, and then transfer it onto the stone, slate, or marble, whatever you would like to put your photograph onto. So the next step is basically to seal the surface of the photograph, and I'm going to use the medium and brush it over to seal the surface of the photograph on the photo transfer paper. So give your medium a little shake. It should look like milky paste. Dip in your brush so it's about 1 inch into it, and then basically just go over your image back and forth about 3 or 4 times just to make sure that you've got a good seal, and then just leave it and let it dry. Don't overwork your image because then you'll cause the image to lift. So 3 or 4 times over, and then just let it dry for about 15 minutes. Okay, so now you've let your image dry at least 15 minutes or more. You can let it dry overnight if you like. And now you're ready to cut out your image. So just take a pair of scissors or an X-Acto knife and score out the image where you want to have it cropped. So that's what I'm going to do right now. These are 4x4 images that are going to fit nicely onto the 4x4 tile. And if you have a little bit of white showing, that's okay because that doesn't transfer anyways. So there's a little bit of white showing on the side of this one, but the idea is I just want it to have so I can fit over the 4x4 tile snugly, just like that. On this one here, I'm actually going to leave a little bit of a white border before I do the cutout. Just that way I can actually make sure that I'm covering the entire tile with medium, and I can push out the medium to the edge and it won't get any onto the image face. So just watch what I do. It's kind of tricky if you're trying to say it, but the idea is I'm leaving about a 1/4 inch border around the 4x4 tile. And this way it just leaves you room for error just in case you put too much medium on. So there we go. It's nice and square for the image, the nice white border, and I know that when I put it face down onto the tile, I'm going to have a little bit of overlap like this, and that's okay because that makes it easy to just peel it off after it's transferred. Okay, so now I'm ready to do the transfer. I've got my image cut out, got the tile laying face down, looking at me. I'll take a little bit more of the medium, about 1 inch worth of medium, and just put a nice generous coat over the entire surface of the tile. Make sure you put it over the entire surface because that's very important. Otherwise you get air bubbles, and wherever you have air, the image won't transfer. So just coat it back and forth just like that so you get a nice glossy surface that you see there. And you have about 1 minute or 2 before you actually do this, so don't panic, no rush. And here's your image ready to go, so I know this is where I'm going to lay it face down. Sometimes you might want to mark the edges by bending them on the corners, and you can actually use that as a template to tell if you're straight or not. So that's a good tip as well. But in this case, I know because I've done this one so many times that I'm straight along the edge because I can see the dark shadow just before it starts to dry. So next thing is to take the spreader and just from clockwise out, pull from the center out to the edge, pushing the medium, kind of like you're trying to push toothpaste out of your tube. So nice and flat like that. I can see that it's transferring well because there's no air bubbles. And if there is air bubbles, don't worry about it too much, in the sense that all you gotta do is put it back down and just use your trowel and push it out to the edge just like this, and you'll get rid of the air bubble and you'll have a good transfer. So anyways, that's what it looks like on the surface, and around the edges I can see some of the medium is oozed out the edge, and that's okay. We're just gonna let it dry that way, and once it's dry, we're gonna put a little bit of water on and then peel it off. Okay, so now we have it transferred onto the surface. The image is down nice and flat, but we want to help things speed up a little bit here. So what you can do is you can use your oven. Put it on the lowest setting, which is usually around 175 degrees, and leave it in there for about 15 minutes. And you can actually put them all on a baker's tray if you want, and that way you can just have your own little assembly line going. So these ones I'm going to put in the oven for now. I'm going to let them stay in for about 15 minutes. And then I'll pull them out, and then we'll just put some water on and do the transfer. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes, and I've had my tiles in the oven at about 175 degrees. So we're probably about ready to take out now, and we're going to get ready to do the peel. Ouch. Bit warm. But that's okay. They're still a bit warm here, but that's okay. For this purpose, I can strip them right now. If you want, you can let them cool down after about 5 or 10 minutes and do the peel then. But one thing we do need is a little bit of water. So grab yourself a cup of water. You want to take your brush, or if you're doing a bunch of them on a table, you can actually take a sponge that you're using for the dishes or washing your car, whatever it may be, and coat the whole surface of the tiles. Put them all together and just do a big peel that way so that you can kind of do them in an assembly line. But the idea here is just to get your brush nice and soaked heavily with water so that it's dripping, and then coat the entire surface of the tile. And you can be quite generous with it and let it pool onto the surface. And what you might see happening is your image starting to come through. Kind of like tattoos when you do on your skin. So now that's your transfer coming through. And on this one you can actually see the shape of my wife and I sitting on the bench. So this one's got quite a bit of water on it. You can let it sit for 5 minutes, you can let it sit for 10 seconds. It's not really that important. You can actually just see that it's starting to move on the edge where the paper will bend a little bit, and then you can start to pull and reveal your image. So the image is gone. It's actually on the tile, transferred onto the tile, as you can see. And it all comes off in basically one sheet. So there's no residue on the paper. Your image is back onto the tile. So that's how you do a transfer onto marble, slate, granite, whatever you're choosing to transfer to for coasters.
Go.
So here's two things I should point out to you. On this transfer, I have a bit of the medium that oozed out over the edge. What you can do is take an X-Acto knife and cut the residue off if you like, or you can take a little bit of sandpaper and burnish the edge with sandpaper to get rid of that. So that's a quick way of doing that. If you actually make your image tight to the edge, when you do the peel, there is no residue on the edge, so you have a nice clean transfer in that respect. The next thing we need to do is put the protective footings onto the back of the tiles. So you want to take one of these little round cork footings, I should say, and apply it onto the four corners, just so that you're going to protect whatever table you'll be applying the coasters to. So there you go, you got 4 now. Nice quiet coaster. So now that you have all the cork footings on, one thing you need to do is coat the surface of the tile just to protect it, because you're basically going to give it another layer of protective coating that will give you a good endurance out of your wedding favors, so that your friends and family will have these for a super long time. That was cheesy to say that. Do it again.
Just do it again. Go ahead.
Okay, so one of the last things you need to do now that you have the footings on is coat the surface of the tile to give it a protective layer. Take your medium again. You don't need as much as you did first time when you were doing the transfer. Just a little bit to make sure that you get a nice milky coating over the entire surface of the coaster. Okay, so now that it's all coated, you basically want to let it sit overnight. and air dry, and once you wake up in the morning, you have a beautiful wedding favor to give out to all your friends and family.